think a lot of times entrepreneurs, especially men, like we get sucked into this idea that, oh, we've got to have the big house, and we've got to have the 5 cars, and we've got to have this, and we've got to have that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, but when you lose yourself in that process, and all of a sudden you realize you've become a person who you don't even like to spend time with, that's a problem.
Entrepreneurs, we are bringing back one of my favorite guests. I met him a few years ago at one of our mutual friends, Carlos' networking event. Big shout out to Carlos and all the great work he does for the Tampa community. Just like Michael does a lot of great work for the Tampa community. So Michael Budensiek, thank you so much for coming back to That Entrepreneur Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vincent. This is it's been a while, but it's good to see you.
Likewise, Michael is a frequent flyer on my podcast. He's probably been on all of them by now, so definitely scroll down in the episode description. Check out his testimonials everywhere because he has a lot to offer. But for today, we have a beautiful day here in Tampa, and we get to hear the latest and greatest in Michael's world. If you missed his story in the beginning, I'll give you a preview before you click play in his earlier episodes. He moved to Tampa with no network, built this little empire here. He's extended to having membership services and everything in between. I'll let him catch everybody up on it, though. Michael, what's the latest and greatest in your world?
The latest and greatest, man. I don't know. It's because there's so many things that happen between, the times in which we do these episodes. And I mean, I feel like that life right now, in general, for most people, just where we're at with, the development of AI, like everything goes so fast. And I don't know that that's a good thing. I'm still kind of on the fence about that, but there was a study done not too long ago that said that in 2000, the year 2000, so 24 years ago, our attention span was 2 minutes and 13 seconds. And it was redone, I guess, in 2022. So 22 years later, it was down to 47 seconds. And I just recently read that. And so I've really been trying to ask myself, like, are you a part of that? And, you asked me for, what's new. And the reason why I feel like there's just so much that's new is because things move so fast, but sometimes it's not that things change so much, it's that our attention is not staying focused on where it could be or needs to be or should be. It depends on your perspectives in those words. But for me, life is a constant journey of essentially self-improvement and service, right? So if I'm not getting better, I'm not serving better. And if I'm not serving better, I'm probably not reaching my goals, right? Because I believe in give to get. And as long as I'm giving and I'm putting out into the world, I feel like that I will receive no matter what. It may not be immediate. It may be a little bit more long-term. It just depends on the play. It depends on kind of what I'm doing or what I'm focused on. But I do believe in that concept. And so, right now, I guess, can I give you a 10,000 foot view? We still have the active fitness facility up in North Tampa.
Perfect.
So we basically see clients there one-on-one or in a small group that want to work on, their overall health, fitness, their lifestyle, or they want to make some, serious improvements and transformational mindset, essentially, right? So it's really changing the way that you behave and live, especially when it comes to food and health and movement, fitness, essentially. And then last year, you kind of mentioned the whole, we had launched this thing called Rocket, which was a local networking company, and where we kind of just did these events on a either biweekly or monthly basis. And ultimately, what I've done with that the last several months is I kind of put that concept on hold because I didn't really feel like that it was serving the community the way that I wanted it to, for one. And for two, I also didn't feel like that it was the best thing that I could be doing, if that makes sense. And so I've kind of like brought it down to a really small group, like, get a small group of people together every once in a while, just kind of like a mastermind or network type thing. But it's no longer like a big giant, like we were doing events with like 50 to 70 people, right? And so we're not doing that anymore. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work to plan those, put them together, ensure people come out, et cetera, et cetera. And I just didn't feel like it was the best use of my time. And then I got involved in a couple of investments over the past couple of years. I don't remember when we talked last, but those are pretty interesting. It's all basically alternative type investments, and some of it's AI driven, which is really interesting, and software based. So got a lot of fun things happening there. But I would say the newest thing, or the thing that I kind of am putting my quote unquote attention toward, is the last like 5 or 6 years, I've noticed a trend in the work that I do as a coach. And that primary trend is that about 90% of my clients are men. And I have, women who show interest and, ask questions, and a couple that work with me, but for the most part, it's men. And I think that it's because a couple different factors, but I think one of the biggest factors I think there are a lot of men now who, like, they want to improve, right? They want to change, like they're somewhere now, but they want to be somewhere else. And that doesn't mean physically, right? They could be mentally, emotionally, spiritually,
Right.
whatever. They just want to grow. They want to expand. They want to be a better leader. They want to be better in their relationships. They want to communicate better. They want to have the body of a Greek god. What I mean? They want all these things. And I started really kind of meditating and thinking about that and wondering, well, what serves that demographic the best, right? Or what could serve that demographic the most? And so I kind of been playing with this idea. I'm starting to put out some consistent content around the thought process, and then also a newsletter. And some of my podcast episodes will probably kind of shift toward that focus. But ultimately, it's the ethos of man, right? And it's a school for men to basically become the man that they envision themselves to be. And ethos is all about, it's credibility, it's authenticity, it's real. It's not like trying to hide behind a smoke screen. It's not about setting up a life that, is propped up and built on things that aren't real or fake, or things that you don't really want, right? I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, especially men, like, we get sucked into this idea that, oh, we've got to have the big house, we've got to have the 5 cars, and we've got to have this, and we've got to have that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, but when you lose yourself in that process, and all of a sudden you realize you've become a person who you don't even like to spend time with, that's a problem, right? And so for me, that's kind of the most exciting thing that I'm kind of like working on right now. And as I build this community, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be fun to kind of see some of this transformational stuff that comes about for these men.
Well, congratulations on all the continued success, Michael. Always been one of the hardest workers since I met him. I'm definitely going to dive into what you said about introducing AI and asking how AI is coming to you. But also on the newsletter, you brought up something I need to hold myself more accountable with. But as far as the podcast, I started giving podcast guest bios or previews, got podcast guest blogs to introduce the people to who's on my shows, because not every episode is relevant to them. So they might not be looking regularly. Oh, Michael's on, he's done this. They might actually tune in. I learned that from one of the podcasting books I read. But as far as AI, before I ask you about that, this morning I had an interesting talk with someone as a book coaching client. He is developing this AI thing where you could talk to a book, like as if you were talking to an AI bot, but you're talking to a book about all the information in that book. You could speak with it, and I'm like, it's scary, but it's cool. But as you said, things are moving fast. What AI have you implemented in your business, Michael? Because I've learned that maybe AI won't be taking our jobs, but people who know how to use AI may take the opportunities. What is your take? What are you using? Enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, from a belief standpoint, right? I don't know that AI is going to take people's jobs. I think it's a shifting of understanding how you best, because at the end of the day, it's still a computer, right? And as long as you bring the skills necessary, because I'm not proficient in it, right? So I have people who I reach out to and ask for help, and whatever, but I don't use it to replace my voice. I think that can and will become a major problem. I think that if you take away the authenticity of who you are and what you're saying, and I can say this because I've tested it,
Yeah, me too.
And I believe in testing things. So as I sat and said, I don't believe in it replacing my voice. I have let it do it a handful of times just so I could see what it's going to say, what it's going to do, if it
Right.
actually sounds like me or not. And the problem becomes is we then start losing our voice in it, meaning it adds some things here and there, and then we're like, oh, we actually like that better. But it's again, it's kind of taking away from the authenticity, right? And so I use it primarily for idea generation on like, if there's it's great at research, right? So if I want to say, and I haven't done this yet, but let's just say I take this ethos of man idea and I say, hey, what are the top 10 things men are talking about right now? It'll give me a list of the top 10 things men are talking about. Then I can ask it, what's the best performing content on Instagram for men right now? And it'll tell me. And then I can then take that data and decide how to create my content strategy or my
Okay.
newsletter strategy or my and I also use it to create images. I think that it can create some just incredibly cool images with depth. And over the last several years, I've really gotten into art. And so for me, that's kind of what I use it for primarily.
And I love we taking notes as always as we go along. AI, the big thing, people are a great authenticity sniffer. They can sniff and when something's not truly you.
Mm.
It comes along with books, people that like to use shortcuts, right? Where AI, yeah, you can ask AI for all of these things to write a book, base your book off of. But it still is scrubbing the entire internet. So if you're copying and pasting pieces of that, now you may have some legal issues down the road. It
Mm.
substitutes, or at least in my experiences, I've seen it substitute synonyms that aren't like correct. Like it could be the same word, but it's not. So things like that I've seen as I get questions in the book world, like, hey, I said you can use it as an aid, like you just said. I'm stumped. I want to learn more. It will break it down for you, but it's up to you to make it your own. So I really
Mm.
love that encouragement there, Michael. And because it makes things easy, it saves time, but with everything's got its pros and cons.
Yeah,
I love how you've updated us and everything. I love Ethos. I can't wait to get caught up with that, see it progress. We'll bring you back in a few months as that progresses to give us the updates on that. But what else do we want to know about you right now, Michael? What else can we look out for from you? How can we support what you're doing?
I mean, I think that if you're a man and you're listening and you are interested in this idea of perpetual growth and change and improvement, and ultimately you have a vision of who you are, but you look in the mirror and you're like, gosh, that's just not me right now. You can hit me up on Instagram. It's probably the easiest way. And if you don't have Instagram, LinkedIn. If you don't have LinkedIn, you could always find me on my website, which is michaelblife.com. You should be able to fill out the form there and get a hold of me that way. But DMing me on Instagram right now is the quickest way to get added to the newsletter or just to know about things that are going on. A lot of that stuff's going to be virtual, which is really cool. But we will have events throughout the year where people can come in and come together and kind of just again grow, change, improve. But other than that, I think that I would say as men, even as people, right, as human beings, this is going to be a year. It's a political year in the U.S., right? So I believe that it's either going to be a year where we can choose to come together, or we can choose to separate ourselves even more from each other. And ultimately, part of my vision for the ethos of man is essentially to bring men together and just kind of build community and help people see and understand that there is nothing for you in that world of separation and hate. There's nothing there. But there's a lot for you if you get surrounded by other people who are trying to also do the same thing you are.
Very well said, Michael. Inspirational as always. Everyone, be sure to go check out his website, scroll on his social media, see what he's all about. He is dedicated to putting out good value. And as he said, he's servicing others. And if it's not up to his expectation, he's finding a better way to help you. Always respect that. And be sure, again, michaelblife.com. The show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all social media. I am at Vincent A. Lancy on all social media and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to me there for some video clips from all episodes. And with that, we are signing off, this time both of us in Tampa. Michael, thanks for taking the time to join us once again.
Thanks, Vincent. Appreciate it, buddy.